Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ifia, and on this channel I create plant-based friendly recipes with a West African twist. Today I have a very lovely video for you. It is cold here in Canada. Everyone and their mother is sick. So I thought I would share a delicious Nigerian-inspired pepper soup that is good for this type of weather. It has indigenous spices that are really medicinal. It is delicious. It is a balance between sweet, savory, a little bitter, and very comforting. So if you want to learn how to make this soup, please keep watching. So here are the spices that we are going to be using. I am going to walk you through every single one of them and give you some form of explanation of the flavor profiles. I will do my best. This is not an original recipe. I will leave the recipe that I'm using for the pepper soup spice mix in the description box below. We're going to start with what Nigerians call uziza seeds. I'm sure it's just one part of Nigeria. In Ghana, we call this esrowisa because it grows above ground. It is in the piper family. It has almost a sharp lemony flavor. This with dawa is like the most perfect combination for umami recipes. So uziza seeds. Then we have grains of paradise, also known as alligator pepper. In Ghana, we call this efom wisa because technically it kind of grows from the ground in little pods in the ginger family. I think I have some pods. One second. Yeah, so these are what the pods look like. When you crack it open, the seeds are in there that look like this. But there are different varieties of alligator pepper. Again, it's in the ginger family. The ones from East Africa have a cardamom-like flavor. Very interesting spice. Okay, uda, or what we call huintian in Ghana, but this is grains of selim. It is, oh, I don't know how to explain it. I love adding this to soup. In the pepper soup spice mix, you wouldn't see this as like the biggest part of it because it tends to be quite bitter. The seeds inside tend to be quite bitter, but this is so good for when you have a sore throat. Just chew on it. It's bitter, it's unpleasant, but it is great for you. This is also really good in coffee. Senegalese coffee uses it. Okay. This is what in Nigeria is called ehuru. In Ghana, we call it huidiaba. This is calabash nutmeg. It's a distant cousin of the nutmeg that we all know, but it doesn't, I don't think it has the same flavor. I think it's still warm flavor, warm spices. I feel like it's closer to vanilla-y, but correct me if I'm wrong. It comes shelled, but most often you can buy them de-shelled, which makes it so much easier to use. Okay, I think I poured the same spice, but this I think is omilu. I feel like this one, I don't know how to explain this. I can't, I'm so sorry. We don't eat this in Ghana. Well, from what I know, I've not seen them sell this in Ghana to be used for Ghanaian cooking, but this is very common in pepper soup spice mix. I don't have it in its raw state, but I have it in a powder version. This is country onion. So country onion, it smells like a cross between garlic and onion. A little bit goes a very, 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 very long way. I feel like it reminds me of barbecue sauce. So yes, country onion. This is nyansa. In Ivory Coast, they call it akpi. It's an oil seed from a tree, and it is used in soups as a thickener, but it also has a really nice, almost oily, nutty flavor. And dry. I've had this for quite a bit, so I'm excited to use this. You can toast it and put it in your soups, just a little bit. Okay. Our next spice is known as Aitaiko, Atiko, Arima. I believe it's in the same family as grains of paradise. It's an Afro-Mam spice. It reminds me of the East African version, which is also called Koririma. It is in the same family as ginger and cardamom, and this one has more of a cardamom-like undertone to it. It's not very easy to find much information on this spice, but this is all I have to share. And then this is bafilu. Okay, let me see my microphone. It is like a big shell, and then when you crack it open, this is what you see inside of that. So you don't need this, you just use that. Okay. Bafilu. and les pièces de résistance. Uyakiak. In Ghana, we call it prekese. This is tetra. I don't know. But this is a soup perfumer. My mom, I don't know how to explain it, but in Chi, my mother says that prekese muye frem. It has a sweet flavor to it, kind of chocolatey in some sense. It is a fruit. So inside there are seeds in there. And what we do in Ghana is that we roast this and it becomes really soft. Once it becomes really soft, it's pliable. You can open it inside. There are seeds in there that come out. This is like all of these are medicines. Spices have medicinal properties because what we attribute to spices, what we attribute to those flavors in some shape or form are actually defenses. So the spiciness of peppers is a defense. It's like a defense for the plants to ward off anything, because if you bite into it, it's like, oh, it's spicy. And then the animal's supposed to run away. But those are what we love about spices. So I'm going to measure out the proper measurements and I will make my pepper soup blend. So I grinded my whole spices using my coffee turned spice grinder. I did not roast these beforehand because the recommendations from the YouTube channel I'm following mention not roasting it ahead of time because we're making it in bulk. When you roast spices, it releases the oils and that can affect the longevity of the spice mix. Now I'm adding my powder spices. So first goes ginger powder. My mom made this one in Ghana. So she peeled dried ginger that we get in Ghana and then turned it into a powder. She prefers it better this way, but regular ginger powder works. In addition, I am adding prekese. So the prekese that I showed you did not fit in my spice grinder, and the prekese powder just makes things so much more convenient. You can get these at African stores. I got this one in Ghana, but if you do not have the powder version, just use the raw tall version and blend it in your blender. And then the last one I am using is the country onion. As I mentioned before, a little goes a long way. This pepper soup mix, I think, is a bit beyond what is needed. Traditionally, pepper soup mix probably only uses 5 spices, but everyone has their own spice blend. I had a lot of these spices in my pantry that I really wanted to use up, so this is why I am mixing it into this specific pepper soup mix, and I just wanted another way to explore indigenous West African spices, but you really do not need all of these spices. You can also buy the pepper soup mix at your local African store, or if you don't have access to pepper soup mix, you can use garam masala, curry powder, or pho spices. They're not traditional, and I do not know much about medicinal properties of those spices, but that is the best alternative I can offer. Just make sure that the soup is spicy and flavorful. Now that we have our pepper soup mix, we can now start making our soup. So the base of my pepper soup is going to be dried mushrooms. Typically, pepper soup is made with different animal proteins. You can make chicken, you can make goat, but we're keeping this vegan/vegetarian friendly, so we are starting with dried mushrooms. I like dried mushrooms because they keep well in my pantry. I get them from my local Asian store. They have a ton of flavor and they make the base of my soup really, really good. In addition to my mushrooms, I'm adding a blend of aromatics, so onions, garlic, ginger, and Scotch bonnet pepper. It is not pepper soup without spicy pepper. I understand that not everyone can handle the heat of Scotch bonnet pepper or habanero, so you can use something like a jalapeno, which is still a little bit spicy, but not too spicy like Scotch bonnet or habanero. Since the mushrooms are dried, I'm going to let it cook for a little bit with the aromatics and some water to not just rehydrate, but also to start absorbing the flavors that I'm going to be using for this soup. So I'll let this cook for about 10 minutes and then come back and build the rest of my soup. After 5 to 10 minutes, my mushrooms have already started absorbing a lot of the liquid. I'm adding my bouillon paste here. This is better than bouillon. I like it because the first ingredients are vegetables. People will use Maggi cube. Not only is it not vegan/vegetarian friendly, the first ingredient is like salt and there's like 60% of that. So I prefer my better than bouillon. Mix that in to help build flavor. Now we're really going to start making the bulk of the soup. First goes in about 4 cups of water. When you add water, sometimes the flavors can dilute, so I'm going to add a little bit more of my aromatic blend just to make sure that those flavors come through in the soup. As always, the final ingredient list and quantities will be left in the description box below on my blog post, in addition to more details about the spices I'm using and some context about pepper soup in Nigerian cooking, the health benefits. From what I'm hearing, it is given to new mothers. It is also given to people that are unwell. That's why I'm making this for flu season. Then I'm going to let my water come to a boil before adding in the rest of my ingredients. I am using fresh mushrooms here. I'm using a mix of king oyster mushrooms as well as these things. They look like enoki mushrooms. I love different types of mushrooms that have different textures. Use whatever is available to you. Now that my raw mushrooms are in, I'm going to add in my pepper soup spice mix. The thing is, pepper soup spice mix, we're using a lot of intense spices, so you do not want to go overboard with the spice blend. For the amount of soup I'm using, I think I use about 1 tablespoon, but I think that was a bit of a stretch. If you're starting out, I do not recommend using a lot of pepper soup mix because it can make the soup bitter very quickly. Start with a little, about 1 to 2 teaspoons, and then go from there. If you don't really taste the flavors, then you can increase the amounts. For my plant-based protein, I'm using smoked tofu. It also has a really nice flavor that's going to make the soup extra special. You do not need to use smoked tofu. You can just use regular tofu. I'm adding some more better than bouillon paste, just again to ensure that my soup is well seasoned. Pepper soup can take different shapes and forms across Nigeria. I'm going to be adding some plantains because I think it works really well for people who have not had the soup before. As I mentioned before, the spices could get a little bit bitter. Bitter flavors is something that we actually enjoy in West Africa, but adding the plantain will have a subtle sweetness that balances out the bitter flavor. It is wintertime here in Canada, so our plantains don't ripe as well. What I'm looking for is a firm but ripe plantain. I'm going to be using 2 plantains. One of them looks super duper ripe with a lot of black on it, but is actually quite firm. And the other one actually looks like how I want my plantains to look, which is just yellow, no black spots, firm, but it will be a little bit sweet. Since I'm using a clay pot, it takes time for my soup to boil, so I'm going to let the soup come to a boil, cut my plantains into large chunks, and then add it to my soup. Once the plantains are done, the soup is pretty much ready. Traditionally, people will include some native greens like scent leaf, which is an African basil for flavor and medicinal properties. I don't have scent leaf, and typically you get them dried here, so I'm going with basil. It is not traditional, but I love the flavor of basil in soup, so just a few leaves in here for flavor and a little bit of color. To check the plantains are done, you can cut a little piece off and look at the center to ensure that everything is an even yellow color. If it's a little orange, then the plantain needs to cook a little longer. And that is pretty much our pepper soup. I have made this soup every single time that I've felt a little bit under the weather. The spiciness and the flavor just completely clears away whatever stuffy nose I have, and then I can breathe better and just go about my day. So this is my pepper soup. If you want more details, everything is going to be linked in the description box below. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you give this recipe a try. All of the recipes, instructions, everything that you'll need is linked in the description box below. The recipe will have details about where you can purchase spices and what you can do if you don't have some spices and all of that kind of jazz. So thank you all so much. Give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.